Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
What are the best ways to grow more grass and maximize profitability in your operation? We've got advice from some leading cattle producers, as well as the experts from Corteva Agriscience.
And now, a special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with host Kevin Oxner.
Well, before we get into the rest of our program, we begin with a Cattlemen to Cattlemen news update. That's because a newly released study estimates that cattle industry losses as a result of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic will reach nearly $14 billion. Now, the study was commissioned by NCBA and conducted by a team of industry-leading agricultural economists led by Oklahoma State University's Darrell Peel to help assist USDA in determining how best to allocate CARES Act relief funds to cattle producers. Now, the study shows cow-calf producers will see the largest impact, with COVID-19 related losses totaling an estimated $3.7 billion, or nearly $112 per head for each mature breeding animal in the U.S. Without offsetting relief payments, those losses could increase by over $135 per mature breeding animal, for an additional impact totaling $4.45 billion in the coming years. Meanwhile, stocker and backgrounder segment losses were estimated at nearly $160 per head, for a total economic impact of $2.5 billion this year, while feeding sector losses were estimated at $3 billion, or nearly $206 per head. I talked with the Colorado Cattlemen's Association's president, Steve Wooten, about the current challenges in the U.S. beef cattle industry because of COVID-19.
Well, it sure has changed some things for us, Russell. It added more uncertainty to our markets than we had beforehand, just because we don't know what the limit of the shelter in place and the social distancing is going to do for consumers that buy our product.
We've also seen several closures of meat processing facilities across the United States because of the coronavirus. And Steve talks about the impact these closures will have on the U.S. beef cattle industry.
In the short term, I think we can keep the supply chain working so the consumer can buy the product that they want. The longer it runs, then it becomes problematic to the consumer, and it really becomes problematic to our feeders that are struggling with markets as it is, but they're having to hold cattle for a week or 2 weeks. It's in the industry's best interest that we keep the closures to a minimum, that we pray for the health and safety of our workers, that everybody can stay healthy and stay at work that wants to and needs to, and get it back up and running as quickly as we can.
Now, the NCBA study concluded that the current situation is, of course, very fluid and uncertain, with additional damages likely. In the meantime, like Steve mentioned, let's continue to hope and pray that the ongoing COVID-19 crisis ends sooner rather than later. And now, here's more on the coronavirus situation and how the cattle industry is responding from NCBA CEO Colin Woodall in Denver.
First and foremost, we are doing everything we can to keep the supply of cattle and beef moving. It's extremely important right now to make sure that the consumers understand we don't have a beef shortage. We have to keep in mind that 50% of what we sell goes into food service. And without the food service business like we had before COVID-19, we have the ability to cover that consumer demand. The big issue for us as producers right now is the backup of live cattle trying to get into the packing plants to be harvested, and of course the ripple effect that has throughout the supply chain on the producer side, and that comes with a negative economic impact. So we are working with the packers, we are working with the White House, USDA, to ensure that we have everything in place to keep those plants up and running, and more importantly, to find ways to keep those plants that are closed, to get them reopened just as soon as we possibly can to harvest cattle again. And of course, with that, everybody continues to have a lot of concerns regarding the cattle markets. NCBA's Cattle Marketing Working Group continues their work. They started well before the COVID-19 crisis began, and they are working throughout the crisis to take all that we are seeing and try to find ways that we can improve ourselves as cattle marketers. We need to fix the cattle marketing system. That has become abundantly clear to us, and this group is doing everything they can to make it happen. We also are taking some time to focus on rural health care. We have contacted the White House and USDA, the Department of Health and Human Services, and encourage them to make sure that rural health systems get as much attention during this crisis as all of the hospitals in the big cities. And it's also important that we maintain vigilance on the mental health. Cattle production is stressful in good times. It's even more stressful in the bad times. And if you have some questions, be sure to reach out. There's a lot of people that want to help you, and you can go to our website and look at our Cattlemen's webinar series that actually talks about mental health. We're going to get through this together. It's not easy, but we are going to get through this together and make sure that we have an even stronger cattle business on the other side.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us. Grass is an essential and low-cost feed source, and no matter what part of the country you call home, if you have cattle, the value of improving your forage is absolutely clear. Those producers who manage their forage resources well also maximize their profit potential. Today, we're talking with a group of experts on ways to improve the use of forage in a cattle operation. And Damon, let's start with a very basic question, and that is, why should we even worry about controlling weeds in the first place?
Well, it really comes down to the one simple answer of you're maximizing your forages. And, as we travel across the country and our local experts talk to ranchers, pastures are in a lot of different situations. So you may be reclaiming a pasture, you may have a very well managed pasture where you're treating annual weeds. But at the end of the day, it comes down to maximizing the grass that you're growing in either one of those situations. So if your pastures are in great shape, those annual weeds are really the first step to a larger decline. So it's important, whether you're reclaiming or an annual treatment, to make sure that you're managing it well.
Kevin said something earlier in the show about really cattle ranchers are grass farmers first. And why do you believe it's so important to think of pasture-based beef production more as a crop operation?
Well, I think it's a very insightful comment from somebody that's doing a great job, and we can see that here. At the end of the day, I think someone that's raising cattle, managing pasture, is doing the same thing that a crop producer is doing. And very rarely do you hear a crop producer that is skipping soil sampling, not fertilizing, not putting a herbicide on. And they're doing that because they're maximizing their grain production, their oilseed production off an acre. And when you think about what a rancher's doing with their pasture, at the core, they're doing the same thing, and they need to manage some of those same variables and aspects on the land.
So Scott, can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of losses producers can experience when they don't control weeds properly?
So yeah, we lose forage production in several ways because of weed pressure. One is just competition for resources, and what we've found at the simplest level, it's usually a minimum of a pound, but more often than not it goes well over a pound of forage lost for every pound of weeds we allow to remain in our field. The other way we tend to lose production is through the number of acres that we have that are grazable. We have certain weeds out there that create kind of a no grazing zone around and under them, and they tend to repulse animals from those areas, and so we end up putting more pressure on our better parts of our field, which in turn turns them into weedy parts later on in the season or even in the next year. And then the other way we tend to lose forage from weed production is through mowing. We have producers that'll mow 2, maybe 3 times a season to keep weeds under control. And what we have to remember is every time we remove an inch of forage, we may be removing anywhere from 100 to 400 pounds of forage from that pasture. So we're removing grazable forage.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you, Damon, why don't we just mow weeds when we have an issue in particular places? Why is that a bad idea?
Well, I think Scott did a great job of talking about what we actually lose. So I think it's very easy for a producer to look out. They see the tractor in the barn, they see some weeds. It seems like a very good management technique, but you do have the forage loss. Plus, when you look at the actual cost of operating that machine and time, as well as the machine and and labor. Oftentimes it's the same amount as a herbicide application, and I think the long-term benefits of a good herbicide application can actually extend beyond just that single year.
So let's talk, Scott, about what are the benefits of producers being able to manage things well and actually grow more forage.
We recently did a survey with the American Forage and Grassland Council where we surveyed the members, and we asked them what are the practices, the forage-based practices that tend to be the best return on investment. And the one that floated to the top was extending the grazing season. And I think that's one thing you have to remember when we're implementing a good weed control program. If we're shifting those resources back to the forage base in that field and we're increasing our forage production, we're going to start shaving off those days that we're feeding hay. And what we're looking at is somewhere around $1 a head per day that we can save for every day that we graze and we don't have to feed hay. So that's probably one of the biggest benefits is just extending that grazing season. And then we have those folks that just want to increase their carrying capacity. I tell producers this all the time, the cheapest acre of pasture that you'll ever buy will be the acre that you regain once you implement a good weed control program. So those people that are looking for more acres, sometimes they need to look internally because they can increase their herd size on their own property.
Without buying any more land.
Without buying any more land.
Well, let's talk to the guys that make their living at this, Mike and Kevin. I mean, what does an ample forage supply mean to you, Mike?
Going into stockpiling for winter forage, carrying capacity is another big option. You know, we can look at if we have ample forage, our stocking rates, put more pounds of beef per acre is going to put more dollars in our pocket. So that's a really big factor for us as far as going through the winter. You know, a lot of times we can supplement with some protein, make them utilize that forage there to where we're not actually having to take everything to them. So, you know, cuts back on the labor aspect of that. And also, I mean, it utilizes your pastures and the land that you have available.
Kevin, what are the benefits of having ample forage in your operation?
You know, I think the cattle depend on us to have a very complete diet, and we like to do that with forage, and it's always a goal of ours to have something grazable for our cattle every day of the year. It might not always be something lush and green such as this, but it could be through stockpile forages. So I think extending the grazing season is a wonderful opportunity. A higher carrying capacity, if it fits our operation, is also opportunity. So it all starts with what we provide, and it's kind of like we can get back out of it what we put in it.
And so one last question to you both. What are the kinds of things that good forage allow you to do from a management and decision-making process? I mean, what options does it give you? What benefits do you get from having the luxury of having some options from a forage standpoint?
Back to, again, you know, carrying capacity, that's a big option for us. You know, we have to make a decision on, are we going to bring more cattle in if we have ample forage. If we don't have the moisture and don't have that forage available to us, then we've got to make that management decision at that point in time. Supplementation of our winter needs, that's a big determining factor. Same way there, you know, if you have plenty, it's going to make a management decision in order to feed a protein supplement to make them utilize it. Whereas if we don't have that, then we're going to have to supplement them a little bit more. So,
anything you would add, Kevin?
You know, I think we have to look at the economic characteristics. Carrying more cattle on a given acre, we all sell pounds, so pounds of beef produced per acre. And then we can never forget about reproduction, you know, or what's the breed up on these females. And we found that a high quality forage can certainly help with that.
Well, thank you guys for your insight. There's no doubt about it that we are first and foremost grass farmers, and we just tend to harvest this grass with those beasts as opposed to the tractors that other farmers use to harvest their crops. Now remember, if you'd like more information about any of these discussion topics today, you can visit the website rangeandpasture.com. We'll have more on Corteva Agriscience and their work with cattle producers right after this. Stay with us.
Grass is the center of our universe. So everything revolves around that. We've got to have a grass program that we can count on and plan on. What we need is an effective herbicide that can kill the weeds. That's what we need to sustain us, to keep us growing, to keep us prospering. We grow our own cows. We like selling them, not buying them. I'm Tommy Brandenberger, and along with my wife, we're cow-calf producers.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest cattle industry organization, working every day to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen and policy updates from Beltway Beef, plus big discounts from John Deere, Cabela's, and more great partners. Join now. Call 866-233-3872 or sign up online at ncba.org.
We're focusing today on ways to improve the use of forage in a cattle operation. So how does someone evaluate their pastures to know which products to buy? Here's Scott Flynn in the field with some helpful advice.
From year to year, we're usually not shocked to see certain weeds pop up again and again. But I think every spring, most producers, cattle producers, can walk out into their pastures and they get this warm, fuzzy feeling when they look out across the field and they see everything that's green. But when you start digging in between grass plants and looking down at what's coming up, you'll see that there are quite a few weeds popping up in your pasture during that time, even though everything looks nice and green. Now the problem is, a field like this that has some patches of annual weeds that have kind of taken over, these patches are eventually going to die out here in a few weeks when we get into the later parts of spring, early parts of summer. And that's great. But the problem is they're going to be replaced with another broadleaf weed more than likely, or even a weedy grass. And so there's several options here. One, you can do absolutely nothing. And in that case, we let nature take its course. And what we find ourselves doing is coming back with a mower a few weeks later and trying to get control of weeds or suppress weeds that way. The other option is to go the cheap route with a herbicide, something like a 2,4-D. And you go in and spray that into a field and we burn down the weeds. But the thing is, we just open up that soil to allow other broadleaf weeds to come into our pasture. And then the third option is to come in with a good soil residual herbicide like Grazon Next HL that's actually going to hold those weeds back for a period of time, several weeks, and it's going to give us the time we need to backfill those bare spots with grasses. Add a little soil fertility on it, and we just make things happen that much faster. So at the end of the day, the best bang for our buck in a pasture early spring is to get on those weeds as soon as possible, get them under control, and start shifting that competitive advantage back to our forage grass species.
And Scott joins us once again along with Mike Weeks. So Scott, what role does fertility play in pasture management?
Kevin, previously I mentioned that we did a survey. We had done a survey with the American Forage and Grassland Council with their members. And while extended grazing was in the top 5, soil fertility was actually the #1 response from producers on return on investment, the best return on investment. We think of our soil nutrients as being part of the building blocks that build our forage base. And fertility is so important for getting that production up, for keeping those pastures healthy, and for them to allow them to repair themselves in a timely manner, so that when we do get bare areas in the field, we can fill in those with a vigorous growing forage.
So are you saying that fertility is more important than weed management, or vice versa?
Oh, it's hard to say one's better than the other. If we look at a scenario where we put weed control first, we clean out the weeds, but we don't give the pasture enough nutrients to repair itself and to fill in those spaces. On the other side, if we go in and fertilize a weedy pasture, we're shifting a lot of those resources to the weeds. So I really like to see producers incorporate both on their operation, a good weed control program and good fertility, because that's where the best bang for your buck comes with both of those investments.
And if I'm not mistaken, Corteva has a product that allows you to do both at the same time, correct?
We actually have two products right now available on the market, Chaparral and Reimagined Next, that through supplemental labeling will allow you to treat dry fertilizer with those products, spread that dry fertilizer on your pasture, and get weed control and your fertility improved in one application.
Now, Mike, you've used some impregnated fertilizer, is that correct?
We have, yes, sir.
Tell us when you started using that, a little bit about your experience.
We started using it. It was the first year that it was labeled for use in Oklahoma. It was about 5 or 6 years ago. We had actually taken a place that we had just bought, hadn't had anything done to it, and to my knowledge, in years. If anything new, you're always a little bit skeptical. We tried it, and extremely great results. I think it's second to none as far as weed control and fertility issues all in one pass.
So what can producers expect in terms of benefits of using impregnated fertilizer?
Well, when we combine those two together and we get that really good vigorous growth, we have enough residual with Reimagined Next and Chaparral to hold those weeds back and allow that grass to jump out ahead, so we fill in those bare spots. So the biggest benefit is that we control the weeds, we shift that competitive advantage to the forage, and then we let the forage overtake those problematic weed species.
And do you see any additional benefits beyond that, just in terms of time or labor or anything else, Mike?
Yeah, that's a big thing, is the labor issue of it. In today's fast-paced world, everyone doesn't have the time to get all these jobs done. Where you're getting 2 jobs in one done in one pass, you're taking care of those 2 issues. So that the labor standpoint has been in time. In our country, the wind blows and trying to put out chemical and things like that. That window is very narrow. Sure. Whereas with it's impregnated on the fertilizer, it opens up that window and gives you an ample time to get something done and get your chemical out and get those weeds controlled.
Well, Mike, it certainly sounds like this impregnated product is a great fit in your operation in Oklahoma. And Scott, I just ask you, if some of our viewers are interested in utilizing this product, where all is it available?
Well, Kevin, it's available in more than 20 states via a supplemental label. And if you want to find out if it's available in your state, I suggest that you contact your local territory manager with Corteva or your local retailer.
Now, to learn more about the benefits of impregnated fertilizer and other Corteva products, visit the website rangeandpasture.com. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll show you some exciting technology from Corteva that can help you better manage your land and fight back against troublesome mesquite. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
How's your production on pasture? Are profits down? Are weight gains down? What are you going to do about it? Do something cost-effective. Do something that will make a difference. To add the first and proven leader in feed-through hornfly control to your cattle rations, ask for it by name, Alticid IGR.
At Case IH, we believe it's our job to provide you with solutions. That's why our Farmall and Maxim tractors, as well as our tools and attachments, are designed with you in mind. From mowing to baling to loading and more, we're here to help turn your to-dos into to-dones. At Case IH, we'll keep your days running smoothly with equipment that's durable, versatile, and highly efficient. No wonder farmers are more loyal to Case IH than any other brand. Visit your local dealer or go to caseih.com/livestock for more.
Cattle producers are always looking for ways to grow more forage and maximize their profitability. But weeds and other invasive species can reduce grass yields and hurt an operation's bottom line. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter has more on a new product from Corteva that is a game changer in the fight against weeds.
Mesquite has long been the enemy of ranchers who want more grass for their cattle and landowners working to provide an improved landscape for wildlife. Now, Corteva Agriscience has developed a powerful new tool to use in the fight to control mesquite and eventually other problem plants. It's called LandVisor.
So LandVisor is a decision support tool that uses sophisticated imagery and integrates data with personal experience from a personal consultant to help ranchers make better decisions. Most ranchers, most landowners know their land. They drive through it, they look at it, but they see it from the roads. What we're doing is giving them a little bit different perspective using imagery, satellite imagery, aerial imagery, other types of imagery, and bringing in the data behind that imagery to help them see their land from a different perspective and see parts of their land, parts of the information that is given them to help them make better decisions.
The cool thing with LandVisor is that it is a decision support tool. So what this means is a cattleman that's been on the ranch for 5 generations or 5 days, he can learn something from it. So we can take sophisticated imagery, we can take a personal consultation and many ranch visits, and we can put together a specialized plan for the rancher. We can look at things from brush management to species that are important, whether he's ranching for wildlife. We can identify where his more productive grounds are, and we can create a plan that produces the biggest return on his investment for the spraying that he does with mesquite and some other species down the road.
Aimed first at mesquite, LandVisor will ultimately be a tool land managers will be able to use against a variety of invasive species.
We're launching LandVisor this year in the Southwest on mesquite, and there's a reason for that. If we can do mesquite, there's a lot of different things we can do with LandVisor. The potential of LandVisor is really endless. It's a technology that we can take into a lot of different areas. We do have plans for expansion of LandVisor. We're going to be looking at different species in the coming years, prickly pear, and some other ones that we'll be looking at, as well as other industries in the U.S.
LandVisor uses state-of-the-art digital technology teamed with one-on-one expertise from Corteva to give cattlemen and land managers a customized approach to reaching their goals, whether that's growing more grass or sculpting the landscape to benefit wildlife. Several Texas ranchers now have first-hand experience seeing the value LandVisor can bring to their operations.
It was a game changer to me because I didn't know the soil samples, I didn't know the density, and I didn't know the potential that this ranch plot had at that time. And so looking at that program, and you could see on that deal the potential and the potential gain, that changed everything. That opened up my eyes to what I need to do to make this ranch a better ranch and to leave it better than I found it.
So LandVisor came in and did some satellite images of the place. He really zeroed in on what areas will produce the most bang for our buck. And he helped us to see where the highest density of plants were.
LandVisor is a very personal interaction. So this starts with communicating with a pasture specialist. We'll take a look at the land, we can create boundaries, and we can chart exactly what they're looking at. We can look through the data, we can find areas where productions can be better, and a lot of times a rancher will think it's somewhere that it's not. So therefore, this is uncovering a different layer that a rancher cannot tell from driving around in a pickup truck or walking through his mesquite.
Well, he took all the guesswork out for us. We didn't really know where to start, and he helped us to really pinpoint that. We could have invested a lot of money in some other areas and not realized it until several years down the road that it wasn't going to do anything for us. So we hope that we'll be able to run some more cows on the place. We're thinking that it may increase our carrying capacity by about 44%. And that's just one little area that we targeted, and that's going to increase the carrying capacity for the whole ranch by 44%. So those are some big numbers that we're excited about.
I'm not going to waste that money spraying someplace where it's not good soil and I'm not going to have that good grass. So there, right there, I'm saving money on that. Looking at where the better grass is and where I can improve that land, and then showing me how many more cattle on there, then I can budget everything I have out, and I can also maybe look into the future as to how much money I'll be making off that little bit of land, and what my cattle need to maybe make for that, so that the spraying is paid for by the cattle. And so that it just really helps a lot.
Not only does LandVisor give landowners the ability to target their investment where it will provide the greatest forage production, it also helps guide the timing of spraying.
What's unique about LandVisor and the mesquite control of the future is that we're being able to monitor it pre, during, and post-treatment. So therefore the condition, the plant vigor, soil temperature, we can look at multiple different types of imagery to see this, and we have a database to understand where the sweet spot is to spray.
If we hadn't have used LandVisor and I would have sprayed just thinking this is the time to spray, I wouldn't have got a kill and I would have wasted my money. And then I might have looked and said, well, that doesn't work and I don't know what they're talking about, but that's not the case. This lets you know when is the best time to do this and when you're going to get that kill.
It really is kind of industry breaking in terms of what we do with it from there, because we can actually come in then and do some post-treatment analysis as well. So we will come back in, we will look at it a year later, use that in the planning process for the next year. So it builds from one year to the next.
The more information you have about these plants and your land, you're better prepared to come up with a plan of attack against these mesquite and other plants that you want to get rid of. And without that, you're kind of guessing and you're going to waste money. And as a rancher, you don't want to do that.
In Texas, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Now, if you'd like more information about the new LandVisor tool that can help you make better, more profitable decisions to improve your forage, then just visit the website landvisor.corteva.us. Up next, we'll tell you about a great new product from Corteva that is helping cattle producers fight weeds and grow more grass. We'll be right back.
Grass is the center of our universe. So everything revolves around that. We've got to have a grass program that we can count on and plan on. What we need is an effective herbicide that can kill the weeds. That's what we need to sustain us, to keep us growing, to keep us prospering. We grow our own cows. We like selling them, not buying them. I'm Tommy Brandenberger, and along with my wife, we're cow-calf producers.
The only thing tougher than your hands is your backbone. And if you make a living doing this, you've got the toughest one there is. It's how you stand so tall. And we'll stand right behind you with the innovation, passion, and integrity that drives us to do what's right. For your operation, for your future, for you. This is why Merck Animal Health works.
Cattle producers are always looking for ways to grow more forage and maximize their profitability. But weeds and other invasive species can reduce grass yields and hurt an operation's bottom line. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter has more on a new product from Corteva that is a game changer in the fight against weeds.
Last summer, cattle producers and land managers participated in a series of Corteva regional field days aimed at showing them new ways to manage their costs and produce more high-quality forage. Effective weed control can help achieve both goals, and the field days introduced a valuable new tool in the form of Duracor herbicide.
Corteva is so excited to bring a new product to the range and pasture market. This is our first new active ingredient that's coming to the market in over 15 years. So excited to have this new product, Duracor, to provide ranchers the most comprehensive broadleaf weed control. Duracor is made up of 2 reduced-risk herbicides. It is powered by Rinsecore, which just won the Green Chemistry Award. So a rancher can feel good about a product that is truly bringing some sustainability to meet their needs.
When we look at the benefits of Duracor, low odor, low use rate, great environmental profile. It's a product that a producer can go out and make an application with and feel confident that they're going to get the job done.
In addition to a strong environmental profile, DuraCore offers control of more than 140 broadleaf weed species at lower use rates and with improved application flexibility. This provides the opportunity for cattle producers to increase their profit per acre.
When you get into that mindset that you're in a profit per acre business, you start to look at your pastures a lot more different than before. You start looking at those areas where you don't have as much forage production and the reasons why you don't have as good a forage production. Roughly for every pound of weed pressure that you have in the field, you're going to remove a pound or a pound and a half of forage production. So getting that under control shifts those resources back to those desirable species that we have growing in our pasture, which in turn helps support more beef per acre.
Flynn says DuraCore provides improved weed control in a single pass, making it more economical than mowing, especially in high weed pressure situations.
A few things that DuraCore addresses that other products in the past have not been as successful at have been members of what we call the carrot family, so wild carrot, poison hemlock, wild parsnip. Those species have been very difficult to control, and a lot of the products that we've used to control them have caused some grass injury. And so to have control of those now without causing any grass injury is pretty significant.
One of the real strengths of this product is going to be its activity on what I consider annual weed problems, primarily things like bitter sneeze weed, things like marsh elder, woolly croton, and other weeds that tend to be the pigweed spectrum, for example, spiny amaranth, which tend to be a real problem, not just in the prairie of Mississippi, but all across the state. I think DuraCore is going to bring good control to a number of perennial weeds.
DuraCore works very good on a lot of the problem weeds that we have big issues with. For us, that's going to be a variety of chicory, poison hemlock, wild carrot, buckhorn plantain, ragweed, thistle, to just name a few. It's very effective on all those species. Gets very good control on a lot of our problem pasture weeds, and really gets a good control and improves the grass production in the treated pastures.
Using DuraCore to maximize your forage through effective broadleaf weed control, along with fertility and sound grazing management, can give you more from every grazing acre, allowing you the possibility of grazing longer or even running more cattle on the same land.
One is that you could be increasing your stocking rate by utilizing this newly available forage. And so having those extra head on helps offset the cost of the herbicide and hopefully helps increase the profits as well.
I think with the cattle market where it is today and the cost of production, producers are going to add fertilizer, and you can either allow your forage to take up that fertilizer and the moisture that you get, or you can allow the weeds to take up the nutrients and moisture. And if you have a significant weed problem, then you're obviously going to lose in terms of your forage productivity. And so that helps maximize the efficiency of the operation by controlling those weeds.
DuraCore is also compatible with liquid fertilizer and can be impregnated on dry fertilizer in select states, giving producers the option of one-pass fertilizer and weed control for their pastures. I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
You can find out more information on this game changer in broadleaf weed control by visiting the website duracoreherbicide.com/C2C.
And joining us now is Damon Palmer with Corteva Agriscience. And Damon, it's always a fun time to catch up with you here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. I guess to kick things off today, let's talk about all you're doing in the area of innovation in range and pasture.
Yeah, so it's great to be here at CattleCon 20. We always take this time to meet with customers, talk about our innovations. But as you mentioned, we focus on innovation in range and pasture. And in 2018, we've kind of introduced Corteva to the world because of our Dow heritage. And at that time, we said that we would like to launch 3 new products in 3 years. And that was a pretty tall order because people were saying, hey, Corteva's new, are you dedicated to the cattle industry? And we're progressing well.
Well, we heard a little bit about the Landvisor program. Walk us through that one for folks who maybe didn't catch it the first time.
Yeah, so I think very familiar based on the segment with Duracor and everything that will bring from a new innovation standpoint. But as we look at 2020, we're also introducing Landvisor technology in the Southwest U.S. And Landvisor is really going to be the future of mesquite control. And it is a digital solution, digital decision tool that really will bring together imagery, it will bring together analytics, and then also a personal consultation. And so it brings really the best of Silicon Valley with 50 years of our experience in range and pasture to provide new solutions for the rancher.
Wow, that is so cool, and it's great to see technology actually make its way to the land, especially for those producers out there that are battling that mesquite problem.
Yes, mesquite, as many producers know that have mesquite, very, very invasive, really can decrease productivity on their land, whether they're managing for cattle and forage production or wildlife. And that's one thing that Landvisor will do is it really helps a landowner understand their objectives, and we can help match a solution to that.
So I want to learn a little bit more about another product or in the area of technology, Proclova.
Yeah, so we just announced a few weeks ago that we have submitted a new herbicide to EPA for registration by the name of Proclova. And Proclova will meet the needs of ranchers, and we've been hearing about this need for decades. And ranchers will come to us and say, we've got weeds, we know it's decreasing our forage productivity, but we've also got white clover in the pasture. And we don't want to spray something that's going to kill that white clover. And so pending registration by EPA, we're anxious to launch for the 2021 season, so a year from now, pending registration, a product, Proclova, that will kill weeds but preserve white clover.
Well, it really is about maximizing profitability out there on the range for these livestock producers, and Corteva really is on their team.
Corteva is on their team, and the pastures, the rangeland, it's, if not the largest, one of the largest assets that producers have, and we can help them maximize the return on that asset.
I kind of want to wrap things up, Damon, talking about a very popular program that you folks have sponsored for a long time, and we've done a few interviews on it, the Environmental Stewardship Award program.
Yeah, we're so happy to sponsor and support the Environmental Stewardship Award program for over 20 years now, and it just really matches up the things we know producers are doing to steward their land, recognize and reward them for that, and hopefully help them tell their story to all the consumers out there that have questions about sustainability and beef production, and I think it's a great tool to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hats off to you folks at Corteva Agriscience, and again, thank you for joining us once again here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
All right, thank you, Russell.
All right, that's going to do it for now, Kevin. We'll go ahead and send it back to you in the studio.
When we return, it's time for a visit with the cowboy poet, Baxter Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to be dependable? It means you do what you say you'll do time and time again. Because performance isn't optional, and your task is essential. For over 95 years, we have proven ourselves to be the most dependable choice. That's why the cattlemen of this great nation trust Ritchie to provide fresh water on demand. Ritchie, proud to be a partner to the American cattlemen since 1921.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Prefert makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Prefert Direct, visit us at prefert.com. Prefert, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
Colorado Saddlery's been making saddles since the year I was born, and I'm still riding one. From rancher to outfitter and in between, if you're looking for a saddle, start here. Our best-selling saddle is a lightweight one for trailer riders. Colorado Saddlery is a family business and takes pride in their work. High quality and reasonable prices, best warranty in the country, and American-made. 303-572-8350. Shipping's free on new saddles. ColoradoSaddlery.com. Whoa. Did you see that? How do you tell the difference between a header and a heeler when he's just standing there? Well, I canvassed the PRC XWA, Pro Rodeo Cowboys Ex-Wives Association, and I've come up with some guidelines that might be useful whenever you're put in the position of having to distinguish between a header and a heeler. The header usually has his hair styled rather than cut. We're number one. The heeler cuts his own hair and always needs a little shave. The header usually has a fairly new pickup and trailer with a coordinated paint job. The heeler, he's still buying recaps, and the paint job on his trailer matches the primer on his brother's barbecue grill. The header usually has 2 horses, his favorite and one in training. The heeler got 1 horse in training and for sale. The header will discuss the lineage of his horse. He's out of an EasyJet mare, full cousin to San Pepe. The heeler, he will discuss the lineage of his tack. I used to ride broncs in this saddle. Association tree, I just bolted this horn on, wrapped it with duct tape. Trevor Brazil gave me this halter. The header has got ulcers. The heeler got a hangover. And when it's all over, and they're back behind the chutes discussing endlessly why they lost, the header, bless his good and noble heart, he'll blame himself, or his horse, or his loop, or his wrap, or his rope, or his horse, or his pull, or his dally, or the wind, or the steer, or overtraining. The heeler, he blames the header. This is Baxter Black from out there. Yes, I'm a heeler.
We didn't just design the 6M tractors with you in mind. We designed them with you by our side. The new 6M tractors from John Deere, reimagined by you, for you. With improved visibility, better maneuverability, and more ways to customize, so you get everything you need and nothing you don't. Experience the new 6M at your local John Deere dealer.
So when we're talking about pasture weed control and we're talking about pasture management and putting a plan together, what we want to first do is understand what's in our pastures. It's kind of like looking down at your dinner plate. You want to know what you're going to eat. And that's the same thing with our cattle. We want to know what they're going to be eating, because a lot of weeds are toxic, but if we don't know the weeds that we're talking about or trying to control, it's hard to kind of put those limitations in there. So what we're wanting to do is just come down into our pastures, and we're wanting to understand that the best thing to do is figure out what weeds you have in your pasture, and that's where you can either get with your agronomist or get with a Corteva Agriscience pasture specialist, and they can come out to your pasture and tell you, like, this is a young ironweed. It's a perennial plant. It really starts germinating in late May, and you can see right here that this is a larger tall ironweed plant, and the more mature it gets, that's where a lot of herbicides start to have problems with it. Another driver weed is what they call buckhorn plantain. As you can see here, It's got the seed heads that pop up. And this is the stage that most people try to control buckhorn plantain, and it's really, really hard. It mats out a lot of grass areas. And then another weed that we've got in this plot is also horse nettle. And horse nettle, it puts out a lot of spikes on the leaf and on the stem. A lot of cattle and even horses don't like to graze around it because it pricks that nose, so therefore you're losing, kind of like thistle, you're losing that grazing space. It can equal up, honestly, to 1.5 to 2 pounds of forages that you're missing. So another problematic weed in our pasture management program when we're dealing with ranchers or hay producers is Queen Anne's lace. This is a plant, a weed species that has a lot of producers throwing their hat in the ground because they absolutely do not know what to do to get rid of it, because there's honestly not a herbicide out there that does anything with it. We can burn it, we can suppress it, but there's really not anything out there that actually controls the plant until now, and that is Duracor. 12 ounces to the acre of Duracor will absolutely take your Queen Anne's lace species out of your pasture. Duracor takes out those problems. Duracor at the 12-ounce rate does a great job on the weeds that you just saw, the tall ironweed, the buckhorn plantain or the broadleaf plantain, the horse nettle, all those driver weeds that really make it hard for cattle to graze or good hay production to be produced. And Duracor takes out over 140 plus weeds, and we're still counting how many weeds. So we haven't even finished a true count of how many weeds Duracor can get out of your pasture. So as you can see here, Duracor cleans up those weeds 12 ounces per acre, and it gives you nothing but forage, and that is what gives you the return of investment on your stocker cows or your cow-calf operation.
Now remember, the full range of Corteva Agriscience products can be suited to fit nearly any rangeland or pasture. For help in selecting the best product for your individual situation and management goals, you can visit rangeandpasture.com. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.